You are listening to the People First podcast.
People First is a self-advocacy group run by people with learning disabilities, and People First podcast is a platform to raise awareness about real issues that affect people with learning disabilities in our community and all around the world.
We aim to inform and entertain our listeners by interviewing interesting guests and talking about the things that really matter to us. This is like having a stage to speak out and get our voices heard.
On this episode of the podcast, you will hear some of the best bits of previous podcasts.
But first, here is a poem that our staff member, Katrina, wrote with some of our members. It's all about how we coped with the COVID-19 pandemic. Wherever you are in the world, we hope that you are staying safe, and we hope that you enjoy this poem.
Sometimes I am the one in need.
Sometimes I am the one in need.
I am the one in need.
Sometimes I am the one in need.
Sometimes I am the one in need, and sometimes I am the one able to give.
Sometimes I'm the one gives.
And so I am the one about to give.
Sometimes I am the one in need, and sometimes I am the one able to give.
We love the community to look after people like this, even during the COVID times.
I love being in the community where people looking after each other like this.
I love being in a community where we look after each other like this, even during the toughest times through a global pandemic. There was the staff of People First, Keithley Craven, with essentials I needed and supporting me daily on the phone.
And now I can pay the kindness forward to those who need some help now. Kindness doesn't have to mean huge checks and big gifts. Real kindness is found in everyday places.
Real kindness are found everyday places, like making a cup of tea for my nan.
Like making a cup of tea for my nan.
Like making a cup of tea for my nan.
Nobody should be judged because they sometimes need help. We understand better than anyone what it feels like to need support.
No one should be judged because there's sometimes need help.
And sometimes the bravest things to say is I need help please.
So whether you are donating food, sharing our campaigns, or liking our posts,
we send you thanks for holding on to kindness through this difficult time.
our community is getting stronger.
Our community is getting stronger.
Our community is getting stronger.
We are there for each other. We are there for you.
We are there for each other. We are there for you.
We are there for each other. We are there for you.
We are there for you.
From Matthew, from People First, Keithley Craven.
David, from People First, Keithley Craven.
From Tom, from People First, Keithley Craven.
Daniel Jones, working at People First, Keithley Craven.
Frontiers, People First, Keithley Craven.
From Alex, from People First, Keithley and Craven.
Be kind.
Be kind.
Be kind.
Be kind.
Be
kind.
Hate crime is an important issue, and any member of your community can be affected by it. Here is an extract of an interview that we did with Byron Francis, who works with the Bradford Hate Crime Alliance.
What is hate crime?
Hate crime. Hate crime is defined in law. The CPS definition is any crime or non-crime incident that is motivated by hatred towards a person because of their identity. And the police are recording under what we call 5 strands, or they will record under 5 strands. We have disability, we have faith and religion, and also which covers non-religion. We have transgender or gender identity. We have sexual orientation and race, which covers skin colour and national identity. So those are what we call the 5 strands. But a hate crime is generally when a person is attacked or picked upon because of the way that they look or the way that they are, and that's in terms of our identity. One thing I think is important just to talk about in terms of hate crime, that some people are picked upon because of the way that they look, and we talk about goths and punks and people with a very clear identity, and that would be recorded as a hate crime, but they don't record the statistics for that. There are other kind of misinformation around things that people perceive to be hate crime. Although in terms of the equalities agenda, we talk about age discrimination, we talk about discrimination for people that are married or in relationships, same-sex relationships or cohabiting. Those are not hate crimes under the law. As I say, we record, or the police record, under what we call the 5 strands, and the 5 strands are what I've just mentioned to you. But again, I would say to any person that feels that they are a victim of a hate crime, it is your perception. So when we talk about perception, it's the understanding of that person. If you feel that you are being targeted because of your difference, be it because of your disability, be it because of your sexuality, your gender identity, your race, your religion, or non-religion, then that would be considered to be a hate crime.
What should we do if we witness a hate crime?
If you witness a hate crime, then first thing I would do is to try and support the victim of the hate crime, because the victims feel what we would say for victims of a hate crime, that people suffer a hate crime, have a greater disproportionate effect on them. So again, because it's an attack on your identity, it's an attack on your belief systems or your faith or your lifestyle, that it's targeted. Whereas if I left my window open on my car, or I left my car door open and somebody opened my car and took something out, then that might be a random crime because of the fact that I've left my window or door open. An opportunist may have come in and taken something out of my car. But where somebody targets you and picks upon you because of your identity, it's not something that we can change or that you even might want to change. So we would say support the victim and do that in however whichever way you feel is appropriate. Beyond that, I would say report it. So first and foremost, support the victim. So even by, are you okay? That shouldn't have happened. Just give them a little bit of reassurance. And then beyond that, report it.
Can local businesses and organisations help to prevent hate crimes?
Yeah, I think that's really good, because we all have a duty. We're all citizens, we're all members of communities, we're all members of the like you said, business community, members of our geographic communities, members of our communities of interest. We are part of a family. By definition, that you mum, dad, brothers and sisters, it may be such that you grew up in a care system, but you're still members of the human race. So when we talk about our identities are made up of many things, from our grandparents, our parents, the influences of carers, foster carers, people, and then when we're going to work and we're going to school. So as members of society, we all have a duty to try and live in a tolerant society. We may not agree with everybody in terms of what they think and what they do and their different lifestyles, but we don't have a right to pick upon somebody or to target that person because we disagree. And there's laws around that, hate crime laws around harassment, intolerance. And again, what I would say is that we all have a duty to stand up and stand against hate and intolerance within businesses, definitely, because where you are employed as an individual to work for an employer has a duty of care towards you as an employee. So if you are being bullied in the workplace, then there are policies and procedures which protect you. And although it may not be a criminal offence in relation to what's happening at work, then it can lead up to summary dismissal, or you could be grossly negligent, or you could be disciplined within the practices of that particular workplace. So all employees have rights as employees. All employers have to have policies that protect individuals. And again, there are particular things about age discrimination, sex discrimination in the workplace, and these, again, other policies to help people be safe at work. But if you are bullied or targeted at work, report it and make sure that the businesses deal with it. So everybody has a role to play: businesses, communities, schools, hospitals. Just as I talk about hospitals, we've done a lot of training at Bradford Royal Infirmary, and Bradford Royal Infirmary have undertaken training to become a reporting centre. So yes, so we all have a responsibility.
Do you also encounter victims of mate crimes?
Yes, we do. I think it's either underestimated and underreported, because when we talk about mate crime, people don't really fully understand that term. And we would talk about disability hate crime, or hate crime that is targeted to people with special needs, or people that may be identified as vulnerable because of their disability. And when I talk about vulnerability, it's not your disability that makes you vulnerable. It's the fact that somebody exploits your disability that makes you vulnerable. For argument's sake, a person that may not be wholly mobile, and a carer or an individual or somebody exploits that by having all of the computers upstairs, having the television upstairs, and you can't access them. But because you can't get up the stairs, you can't access them, and they deliberately have things there where they can use and other people, but you can't. That would be a form of exploitation based upon the fact that you are unable to get up the steps. Other types of abuse, we would like to call it, and victimization is where people might take over a person's house, or they befriend that person, knowing full well that that person may be isolated, and they then start to use their house to have parties and bring other people in. They may be selling drugs or using the house for illicit purposes. But these people, as victims, consider the perpetrators of these crimes to be their friends. So the crime is carried out almost like exploiting that friendship. And there's like the financial abuse that might take place, where a person has an income and somebody else is either taking the money or exploiting that. A case may be where a person has money or savings and somebody's taking money from them to do jobs, but they are taking more than is reasonable. So if they might be giving them a £5 and then that person says, well, that's not enough, I need more, or that coercive or threatening behaviour that is exploiting money out of people because of their vulnerability. And it's not because they've got a disability, it's the vulnerability that's identified and exploited.
We have heard a lot about county lines recently. Could you explain what county lines mean?
Actually, that's a really interesting question, and yeah, I can, because I did some training around county lines, and county lines is where gangs or organised criminal activity takes place in other areas, or where people are transported to other areas to undertake criminal activity. An example might be where a young person, generally it is young people that are exploited in the county lines activities by organised crime groups or gangs, and a young person may become a member of a gang, or they may owe money to a gang, and they will be taken out of their homes, or they will be transported to another area to undertake criminal activity. That could be selling drugs, it could be a form of prostitution, they could be carrying out crime in that area, but they're carrying it out for others, and that's organised through either a crime syndicate or a gang, and it's coercive in as much as these young people may have started to become gang members. And I'll give you an experience. I don't say it's a typical experience, but it's an experience that some young people find themselves in, where they find themselves getting exploited because of their involvement. A young person may be asked to take a parcel to an address, and they receive payment for doing that. They may not necessarily know what's in the parcel, and they'll receive a payment, and in that parcel might be drugs. They may be asked to take another parcel to another address. Now, they've taken it to that address previously, possibly innocently, but they've received some payment for that. And they think, well, that's easy money. So they agree to take another parcel to another address, but whilst going with this parcel that contains drugs that may be significant and substantial amounts of money within that, in terms of the actual costs of the parcel that they're transporting, and somebody robs them along the way. Now, that's been set up by the gang or by the syndicate. They then go to that young person and say, right, you've lost my parcel. That parcel is worth £10,000. You now owe me £10,000. That young person has no way of being able to pay that £10,000 back. So what they'll say is that, okay, every night after school, you come here and you do this for me. And that's the first kind of trapping or entrapment in that kind of web. And then because they got so entrenched and they have no way of being able to pay off this money, they're finding themselves in debt, that they'll then transport them to an area to work. Now, because they've been involved in criminal activity, it's not that easy for them to go to the police and tell the police what's happening. It's not even that easy for them to tell the families, because the families might have been threatened. They might have been told that if you tell your mum or your dad or anybody that we're going to hurt the family, we're going to hurt you. So the county lines is where criminal activity takes place outside of the area. So it might be somebody living in Bradford that is selling drugs in North Yorkshire or Lincolnshire or Humberside, and there's a house or there's a base set up for them to go there and work. And that's what the county lines is.
Staying safe online is very important, so we recently spoke to a member of West Yorkshire Police Cyber Security team who gave us some helpful tips and tricks for staying safe online.
There's a lot of different things in the online world that we post online that would be classed as personal information. When we use the internet, we post a lot of that personal information online. People know things about you through your profiles, through social media, on your online accounts, that they can find out about you. And all too often, it's because we, as an individual, we physically posted it on the internet ourselves. So what we need to look for, profile pictures. When you upload a picture of yourself onto your social media, you then set that as your profile picture. People then see you. They get to know what you look like. Potentially, you've tagged yourself in at a location, or you're telling people where you live. So that's your home address. They've got your name. Again, one of the most simplest of pieces of personal information that goes online is your name. People will then get to know that about you. And because they know your name, you may then be sort of tricked into thinking, well, that person's trustworthy. They know who I am. Potentially not, because you've put your information online, they've seen it, and that's why they know your name. Where you work or where you go to college, quite a lot of people will, for whatever reason, they'll tag themselves in at locations. So you go to school, you go to college, you go to university, you go to work, and you're tagging yourself in at that location. Well, that's telling people this is where you are. But that in itself can be quite dangerous, because it can open it up to other criminal offences such as burglaries. If you've tagged yourself in at school and people then know where you live, well, they know potentially there's no one at your house because you've shown yourself to be somewhere else. Well, that gives an individual, a nasty individual, the opportunity potentially to go to your house, break in, and to steal your personal possessions. And this is why we need to stop and think about what we post online. Again, who are your friends? Who your family are? They may be able to have a look at your friend list. They may be able to have a look at who you are linked with on social media. Your phone number, again, all too often you're going to have a mobile phone, guys. That comes with a mobile phone number. You should only be giving that to people that you know and trust. You don't want the entire world to have your phone number. Otherwise, you're going to start getting those annoying phone calls, aren't you? And again, your email address. As we get older, we find that we use emails a lot more. Certainly for official things, work, school, college, university, we use it a lot more. So we then shouldn't start sharing our email address with everybody, because you don't want to be sifting through thousands of junk emails to find that one email that you actually need. So we're going to have a quick look at what a typical Facebook profile may actually look like. So on your screen, what you can see here is a fake Facebook profile for Sue Smith. We've got her profile picture, so you know what she looks like. You've then got all the conversational history of who you've been talking to. We've got photos and videos. So every time you upload a photo or a video onto your social media account, it's stored here. So if someone was to visit your profile, to click on that, they're then potentially going to see all of your photos, all of your videos that you perhaps thought was private. Because you've uploaded it, it's no longer private. Again, you see your family and friends, who, like I said earlier, who you link to. Your contact information on Facebook is also can be available and visible to other people, so such as your telephone number, your email address, or simply where you live. Again, all of that is readily available. It paints a picture of who you are, and they can use this information, again, to find further information out. So they can take your address, for example, they can put that into Google Maps, and then they can physically see where you live. They can see potentially where you're going to go, and certainly if you've advertised where you go to school, they can see potentially your route that you're going to take to walk from your house to your school. Well, that can be quite dangerous. It can leave you quite vulnerable by advertising that information. Again, public profile, anyone can see it. If they know your name, if they search for it, if they happen to find your account by linking or looking at somebody else's account, because your profile is public, they can then see what you've posted. Again, it must be set to private. If you don't know how to set things to private, speak to an adult that you know and trust. From there, we can then go through it with you. We can tell you how to do it. We can show you how to do it to ensure that your social media accounts are safe and private. Again, other things that we need to be aware of, the information. You've got your name there, you've got your address, your date of birth, where you work, your hobbies, what you like, all this kind of stuff. Facebook puts it all together quite neatly. And the same can be done on Instagram and other such social media apps. But you need to be aware of what you're advertising online. If that person isn't known to you face to face, as in you go to school, college, university, you work with them, or the fact that they're a family member, they're a neighbour, you live next door to them, or you go to a club outside with them. If you do not know that person face to face, then we don't know them. That person will be classed as a stranger. You're not going to go to some random person in the street, are you guys, and start saying, "Oh, do you want to have a look at my photographs? Do you want to have a look at my phone and all my personal information?" Because you know about stranger danger, and you know that we shouldn't be speaking to them. Online, it is no different. So stop and think. Always ask yourself, do they need to know that about me? Well, if the answer's no, then we don't say anything. We don't share it with them. We keep that to ourselves because that's personal and private information. So a top tip in relation to this, always ask someone you trust to help set up social media accounts. And again, to check it on a regular basis. Sometimes if a social media app is updated, then that may reset the security permissions on your account. So by doing it on a regular basis, you can ensure that your account is set to private and only your real friends, people that you know and trust, will be able to see your information. Can we believe everything that we see or hear online? Do we really know who we're talking to online? I would say no, for the simple reason anyone can pretend to be somebody who they're not. When you're playing your games, when you're chatting to somebody, they can tell you fake information. They can tell you a fake name, a fake age, tell you that they live in Bradford or similar, but again, it may not be. It may be someone completely different on the other side of the world. Because we're online, we can hide behind a computer screen. We can say what we want, but it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to get away with it. Because if we do things online, sometimes it can get us into a lot of trouble. Is it easy for people to pretend to be our friends online, lie to us? Of course it is. I say they can take a fake picture off Google, create a fake account. They can pretend to be your friend. You believe that to be whoever it is that they're pretending to be, when in fact it may be someone completely different. An adult, male, female, someone who's tricking you into doing things deliberately that potentially you shouldn't be doing, because it can get you into a lot of trouble. And remember, guys, enjoy the internet. You should be happy all the time. You should be having a bit of a laugh and a joke with your true friends on there, and not feeling nervous or upset. We don't want you to feel unhappy when you've finished using the internet. We want you to be happy by what you've been doing, but we need you to remember that online things aren't always as they seem, and we need you to remember the fact that personal information, guys, that's for you. You need to keep that safe and private.
With the 2021 Tokyo Olympics coming up, we thought it was a fitting time to share some of the interview we did with artist and athlete Tim Curtis, who talked to us about some of the history of the Paralympics.
Today we're at the Paralympic Heritage event, so as you can probably tell, it'll be more noisy than the usual shows. We're not in the studio. Today we are talking to Tim Curtis, the organiser of this great event here at Cartwright Hall. Thank you for having us at this great event.
Thank you very much for agreeing to be involved. And if I'd have known it was you, Tom, I'd have not even thought about it even for a second. Absolutely. It's lovely to see you.
Can you explain to our listeners what is going on today at Cartwright Hall?
I will try. Since January, we've had an exhibition here that tells the story of the Paralympic movement, which has its origins in Stoke Mandeville with a character called Ludwig Gutmann back just after the Second, or at the end of the Second World War. It tells the story of the Paralympic movement, how it began there, and then how that has continued and how it has a dimension for Bradford district, all the way up to current Paralympians, para-athletes, Special Olympians, and general levels of disability and inclusive sport in the district.
Why is it important to celebrate our Paralympic heritage?
I believe, as an artist and a historian, I believe celebrating all heritage is important, whatever it is. It's particularly important to celebrate our Paralympic heritage because it's about our people, So the people of Bradford, firstly, Bradford District, the people of Great Britain, of the UK, of the world. And just because somebody happens to have a disability doesn't mean that we should remember or celebrate them any differently than someone that doesn't. But the Paralympics is a movement that did begin in Great Britain. It did happen through the foresight and sheer force of personality of Ludwig Guttmann, who was really a maverick when he said that he believed that to help, primarily to help spinal injury patients in their recovery and recuperation, he introduced competitive sport as a means of helping people do their physiotherapy on the back door, really. But what he found was the incredible and immense benefits to people's mental health and well-being, which has resulted in a whole branch of medical research and work with people that was before his time was unthought of. So we should celebrate that this came out of this whole movement, and that it had its humble origins in this hospital that was for aircrew in the Second World War, where they were being treated by this maverick German Jewish doctor, who, by all the stories I've heard told about him, was not the most easy character or pleasant person to get along with, but his strong will and determination made something very different happen. That now, for me, I became really aware of the Paralympics after London 2012. But it's not even a consideration. We have Paralympians advertising major sporting brands and goods. They are celebrities on television. They're in the same category as non-Paralympic athletes. So, and in some respects, we're starting to get some parity with the money that's paid between them for prize money and sponsorship as well. So, for me, that world is changing in the good direction. So again, I'd like to think we're celebrating that change for the better in our society.
Why do you think it's important for people to stay fit and healthy?
Well, I've already alluded earlier that it has currently immeasurable benefits for mental health and well-being, physical exercise, and I firmly believe that. I've made that part of my own life, but I've seen it and witnessed it with other people too. So I'm not a medical scientist. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a researcher, but my own anecdotal personal experience is that physical exercise, being outside, is really good for your mental health and well-being. Of course, it's really good for your physical health and well-being too. Core strength is the thing, that's the key. So, and I have learned through my work as a cycle coach with people with a range of disabilities, I've learned that core strength can be taught to all people, almost regardless of disability. You can teach an element of core strength, whether that's controlling your neck muscle in your head if you've only got head movement, all the way through to controlling spine, to controlling your core all the way down through the middle of your body, so that you can keep your balance in things. All of those are key things that people should practice all the time. Doing physical exercise, you have doing a sport, you have to use that key aspect of core strength. So that's good for everyone in every way. It helps with your hand-eye coordination and your core strength and flexibility. That helps people live a longer and more fulfilling life. Yeah.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the People First podcast. If you have enjoyed it, we would appreciate it if you could like and share it on social media, and hit the subscribe button and review the podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thank you.